Lost Ruins of Arnak. This is your review for 2. Good day, my name is Joe Gerba. Today I'll be going over Lost Ruins of Arnak and how it plays with 2 players. Now this game is a 1 to 4 player game where it's a little bit of deck building, a little bit of resource management, a little bit of just board control, all while trying to gain end of game points. And well, whoever has the most points at the end wins the game. Let's see a little bit more how to play. So in Lost Ruins of Arnak, there's a lot going on, but it's mainly driven by this your deck that you're going to have. It's small deck building. You know, you're going to start off with 6 cards and you're going to draw 5 of them. During your turn, you'll be able to play certain cards to get you certain resources, and these cards will also allow you to move and explore throughout the board. As you explore, you'll just be getting different kind of resources to be able to explore the temple, or when you explore a place, you'll be able to go to a new island here in the middle, or a new location in the middle, fight a guardian, and that guardian will give you special powers later in the game, or a one-use special time later in the game. Along with deck building too, you'll be using your coins and your compasses to purchase new cards for your deck. You can also thin out your deck. There's a lot of little mechanics going on. It doesn't do one of them. You know, the whole game isn't focused around one of them each. It's a little bit of deck building, a little bit of resource management, a little bit of how do I score some points. So, like I said, on your turn, you have a hand of 5, you get an action to play, whether you want to progress through the temple track, explore, you know, the island lands, take a basic action, take one of these cards, or defeat a guardian. Those are the actions you'll be doing each turn. This game has 5 rounds, so once you're out of cards to play, the round ends. The moon staff advances, different cards are shown that you can buy, you'll get your meeples back. It also has a little bit of worker placement. So like I said, it does a lot of little things in this game. On your round, on your turn, you can place one of your meeples to an action. Now you only get 2 per round, so you really have to think where you're going to place them. When you put those out there, you usually get some resources, all while just trying to get points, whether you're the first one to explore a place, or moving up the temple track, or just buying cards. This game just has a lot going on with it, and well, let's see what I thought about the game. So this game feels really neat. There's a lot of cool pieces to touch. There's 5 different resources down here. There's meeples, there's cards. You know, it kind of gives you a little bit of everything. When it comes to the components, these things are just pretty neat to pick up, feel kind of weighty when you get to spend them too. This game is really well put together. The rules were easy to read, easy to get through. I could probably, with a little bit of setup, get this back to the table fairly easy. The references come with 2 double-sided references. Those things are great. As far as the production quality of this game, I really do like it. Let's go on to setup a little bit. Like I said, setup doesn't take too long. It'll take you about 15 minutes or so to get this from box to the table, which really isn't too bad if you're doing it by yourself. If you have somebody else helping you, it'll definitely take a lot less time. And it's easy to get back to the table once it's been in the box for a while. Table size, you could probably do this on about a 3x3 table. It's a little bit more compact than some. There are player boards that each player is going to have to give you some references to show your companions. But as a whole, you can probably set this up in about a 3x3. So let's talk about the gameplay, and that's the most interesting part about this game. You're always thinking, and you're always going to be doing something. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I know it may have been a little bit scattered, but in this game, it's really, you have 2 workers to place. You never get more. There are some cards that can have you replace workers or something, but you're always just going to have 2. So you had that worker placement element where it feels weighty. When you place a worker, you get the resources. But that's all as well card driven. Your deck starts with 6 cards. You draw 5 of them. So you're always going to have that revolving kind of door of, it's a small deck building. You're not going through this deck, 20 times, 30 times like you may, Dominion or something where you're really trying to make it lean and efficient. You can, but these are your actions for the turn. These are your cards for the turn. This will determine where you can go. You'll be using these symbols to send your explorers out there. And buying new cards, it does feel kind of weighty buying a new card early in the game, because you may see it 3 to 4 more times, especially for these items. Now, an artifact, a little bit different. When you buy it, you immediately get to use it. It's just, it's kind of odd, because in a deck building game, when I buy a card, I want to see it a lot. But in this game, when you buy it, you're really only going to see it, like I said, if you buy the very first turn, you may only see it 3 to 4 times. Now each card's going to give you points at the end of the game, which is of course how you win. But I'd like to see that a little bit more. I'd like to see a little bit more in the deck building, because the game to me felt pretty short. The worker placement, you really had to think about where you were placing these guys. So, between the deck and worker placement, and then the last mechanic I'm going to tell you also seemed a little bit thin in a lot of choices, was resource management. The best, where a lot of points may come from is advancing up this temple track. You're going to have 2 markers that you can advance through this track to get different bonuses throughout the game, to get these companions, which do quite a bit of work for you. They can be used every turn. And you just advance your tokens and hopefully get to the top of the temple to score a massive amount of points. But it's all in the resources you have, where the ends justify the means. You're doing all this stuff on this board to get resources to advance down the temple track. So it has 3 big mechanics, like I said: deck building, worker placement, resource management. But you'll never have an abundance of any of these. It's like a light deck building, light worker placement, light resource management, which can be good and get back to the table, and it's a lot of fun, but it gives you a lot of choice, but it's really pretty limiting. You know what you're going to need to do, you know where you're going to need to go, what cards are going to be good, and it's kind of tough to explain. It just feels like a light worker placement, light deck management, and a light resource management. So, and that's a little bit about the gameplay itself. What I do like about this game, though, is the difficulty is just enough there where you feel like there's a lot of choice to be made. And you know me, I love games with choice. And I think it's easy to teach other people. You're going to put your worker, you get that resources. The references are great. They're easy to teach. Near the end of the game, you get these idols for exploring new places. You can use those as like one-off, getting a resource in a pinch. Killing guardians. When you explore a new site, you got to defeat this guardian or get a fear card. They also give you a one-time use. So at the end of the game, you're going to have a lot of these one-time use things that can come in really clutch to get you those last couple points, to eke out those last couple points. Which kind of brings me into the replayability. There are 2 sides of this larger board with really 2 different temple tracks. But as far as the replayability, you know what you're going to do every time. Each person is going to have the same board, and this is changed up with the expansion, but each person's going to start off with the same cards. You're going to have the same board to look at, same cards you can buy and everything. So there's not a lot of asymmetry in this board game. And so that kind of detracts a little bit from the replayability, where every time you know what you kind of want to do, there's not a whole bunch of varying strategies. Yes, you get points for cards, you get points for exploring new places, getting idols, but you know, the biggest point gatherer is always going to look like it's going to be this temple. When you get to the highest spot, you're going to score, you know, 23 points with your magnifying glass, and then your book's going to also score some points. So the replayability was a little bit on the mediocre side for us. We definitely played this game about 6 times, but it's time for us to put it up. It's one that you could play probably 2 to 3 and say, okay, that was enough for now. So it's definitely not one you're going to play over and over with a whole bunch of variations every time. The play time took us about, I don't know, hour and 15 minutes or so each time, and we just had a lot of fun. Each time the scores were pretty close. They were within the 50 to low 70 kind of range, and they were always pretty close. You're always on your turn gathering points, which always feels good. No matter what you're doing, you're probably gathering victory points at the end. So being close in a 2-player game always feels pretty good for most players. So is this game good for 2? I do like this game for 2. It's just a lot of fun. It gives you the little basic mechanics on the deck building, the worker placement, the resource management. I think it's a nice middle of the road game as far as difficulty goes, maybe even, you know, a little bit lower than probably the average game that usually I like. But just being able to flip cards or flip tiles, flip guardians, knowing what you need to get done, having different helpers to gather, you know, it's a well put together board game. I do have to give it a little knock because it did feel samey after about the second play. After the second time we played this game, I was like, okay, well, I know what I need to do. I know what's going to be done this time. The variance of this game, pretty low, but that doesn't detract from it being a good board game. There's a lot of choice, which is great. There's a lot of player independence. You know, there's not a whole lot you can do to affect the other player. If you place one of your meeples somewhere, they wouldn't be able to go to that same place. But that's really about the only player interaction that you're going to get. They may steal your card that you want to buy, but they can never alter your hand. So it's a little bit of a solitaire mechanic, and you know what you're going to get when you play this game, which are, you know, they do tick it down a little bit, but overall, this game is very well put together. This game has tight mechanics. The rules, there's not a lot of fiddly rules, which is, in a lot of the board games that I play, it's all this, oh, let's go look at the rule book. What do we got to do? Let's look at the rule book. Oh, this wasn't answered. Let's look on Board Game Geek to try to get something answered. This game, I never had to get on Board Game Geek one time. The symbols were clear, the rules were clear, the references were clear. Everything was just well put together in this board game. So I do recommend this game for 2. With 4 or 3 or 4 players, it's just going to take a little longer. Each player goes one at a time for their action, and then you pass, and then you do your next action until, you know, everybody at the table passes, then the round's over. So it can take a little while with 4 players, but with 2, there wasn't much downtime. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, the mechanics are tight. It just didn't hit that excellence mark of variance between each play. But overall, this was a great game. I do recommend it for 2. Until next time.